Good morning, listener, and good morning, viewer. This is a damp mid-March. Is it mid? No, it's early March still, Pat, isn't that right? This is
It's early March, yeah.
7th.
It's
7th.
the,
Aye.
the
A week,
seventh, yeah.
over a week to Paddy's Day. But you can see the thrust of greenery coming up out of the earth. I was driving
Uh,
along this morning, and there was a whole, the way they do now, daffodils at the side of the road.
yeah, yeah.
God, they're looking great altogether. And I always feel that we've passed that first flush of spring whenever they clean them out. They begin to wither and then
Yeah,
they
yeah, yeah, yeah.
anyway, sure, come rain or shine, we are here to tell
Hmm.
the people what's what. Okay,
Yeah.
Pat, you felt that Sir Keir Starmer's meeting with Taoiseach Michael Martin was a significant event. And that happened, was that yesterday or the day before?
Yeah, yesterday. Look, you know what it is. Uh, Normally we talk about domestic events by and large, about
Hmm.
what's happening in Ireland all the time. But what's happening on the world stage is so unbelievable this last while that somebody says, "What's the point?" But what America's doing and what Europe's doing is going to have affect all of us. So it does. It's relevant. And
Yeah.
yesterday I was watching on BBC the meeting between Starmer and Artisha and Micheál Martin. And Jude, the last time, as far as I remember, there was the last meeting between Atisha and British Prime Minister was Varadkar and Boris Johnson.
Yeah.
They met somewhere in Liverpool and they agreed something during some sort of relationship. And about 2 weeks later, Boris just blew it all up, just absolutely tore up the thing, and basically said, "Bollocks that agreement. I'm not. I'm reneging."
Uh,
And there was I remember at the time thinking that is British arrogance. They think that the EU, that was during the whole Brexit thing, and they thought we're going to do whatever we want, and the little Irish can bugger off, and the body language is one of arrogance. Yesterday, Sir Keir Starmer was so far up Michael Martin's backside, I was wondering where he was going to come out. He was, they were almost cooing at each other. Oh, lovely. Oh, brilliant. And they agreed a 38-point plan. And
38
Starmer,
points, Jez. 38
so,
points. I never
I don't
remember
even know
that.
where they get through. Anyway, I know I wrote it down because you know my memory. Starmer says we're now in a new era of relations, and we have turned the page on the turbulent years. Now, Jude, what do you think of that?
I think that's rubbish. I think it's something that everybody should never, nobody should forget is the fact that Ireland is still partitioned. And there are six
Yeah,
counties there. And as I said the last week, it seems a little bit ironic that we get very hot and bothered about, say, the Ukraine, where it's being invaded by a superior force living beside it. But somehow or another, we blocked out the six counties. And then the way we say get over that is, oh, well, we've got the Good Friday Agreement. But I think it goes deeper than that. You begin to think about the six counties either as non-existent or else as a totally different entity. And there's few things that really get up my nose, but that's one of them. Is that people would see the North as a place apart. And boy, oh boy, have the likes of Micheál Martin and Leo Varadkar and others done all they can to keep it a place apart over the years.
yeah.
Anyway, do you think or did Starmer have good effect on Micheál? Did he give him tips or anything like that?
I don't know, Jude, just what I thought. The thing about it, Jude, the last time the arrogance was all on the part of the Boris Johnson,
Hmm.
on the basis that they thought that they could ramrod their way through the EU and Brexit and so on. This time, I think there's an acknowledgement on nearly every level at the British side that Brexit is an absolute disaster. There, and as you rightly pointed out the last day, Starmer is making every effort to align himself with Europe in regards to Ukraine. He's not going on the side of the Americans. Plus the fact that he sees, and everybody with a brain sees, look, it's easier to trade with France and Germany and Ireland and all the rest inside the EU than sending whatever it is to New Zealand, Australia, or wherever, or America. You trade with the people nearest to you. You don't trade with people furthest away. And Brexit has been a disaster. A simple thing. Even going on holidays. You now see the Brits queued up at the airport
Yeah.
while other people are walking through. Even stupid. And like my young nephews, a couple of them, Erasmus, going off to
Uh,
Europe.
That's still operating, is
Yeah,
it? Oh, is he from the north or the south? South?
he's from the south. He's from the south. But what do you call it? Like those people wouldn't be allowed to if they were from Britain. So
Hmm.
anyway, Jude. So I think Starmer has realised that Ireland, an alliance with Ireland, will help their status, standing, and relationship with the EU.
And also with the US, because wasn't Trump saying kind words about the Irish people that they had such good judgment, a large portion of them had voted for him. And he says,
Uh,
great people,
uh,
they had voted for him.
uh,
I would have thought
uh,
that counted against them. But listen, come back to
uh,
the point. Micheál, when is Micheál going to see Trump? What day is he going to go into him?
I'm not sure, Jude. It's usually St. Patrick's Day, and
Ah, you
what day
say
is St.
that's
Patrick?
fine.
As a Tuesday.
Well,
I'm not.
if it's St. Patrick's Day, that's fine. But I understood, you see, that they've extended this into a whole week. Well, they
They
do.
are. They're
So
yeah.
he might go in
They
on
usually
another
they
day.
usually the what do you call it, the big march in St. Patrick's or New York is, I think, the Sunday before
Well, there you are.
St.
You see.
Patrick's Day. I think
Yeah.
that's usually the thing,
Hmm.
and it's a full day of all events. But
Uh,
actually, they turned it into a weekend. It's a big weekend, and like basically, it's there's no other. In fairness to that, whether how you rate it, it's a different matter. But there's no other country in the world that gets that sort of treatment in America.
Well, it was America that invented these parades on St. Patrick's Day, so I suppose they should
Yeah,
be good at it. But here, I still want to ask you this question, Pat. And this is the third time I've had to ask you, what do you
right.
think
Okay.
should Micheál do? How should he act when he goes in? Because I heard them talking on the RTE this morning on the radio about what line should he take. Should he be um, firm? Should he be obsequious? Should he be stubborn? What? How would you conduct yourself if you were Micheál? Share the thoughts.
I think he's going to have to be diplomatic, but I don't think he should kowtow whatsoever.
Right.
I think uh, Trump just walks all over people he thinks they're weak. So
Okay.
Michal, like he had Zelensky the last day, a man who English is not his first language. He had him surrounded and all the rest of it. I think if Zelensky had taken a different tack, you know, and another way, Macron was sitting there and Trump said something. He said, "No, that's not right," and he just right away corrected him.
Hmm.
So I think Michal is going to have to get and say, "Look, Mr. President, what you're doing in Europe, we disagree with. You're quite entitled to do it, but we don't agree with what you're doing in Gaza. We certainly don't agree with, and so on. We've had a long relationship with America, and we're entitled to our views, type thing. And along the way, and we know that what the American people that you're doing, you have to flatter them and saying, well, you've had an amazing victory and so on. But look, friends can disagree.
Yeah, I heard this morning too that Simon Harris had a phone call conversation with somebody from Trump's cabinet, and
Marco Rubio.
Marco Rubio, and that Marco Rubio said that they discussed the imbalance between
Trade.
the trade in from Ireland to the US and vice versa. And Harris said, "No, that's not right. It didn't happen." And I think there were several people on saying, "Well, that's all Micheál needed was for somebody to put him on the spot before he even got near it." So. Do you think will Micheál have the cojones to actually man up to him, or would that be
No,
wise?
I don't think he will. Michal, one thing you got to give, he's a very experienced politician at this stage. I saw him on the Late Late Show last week. Like, I didn't agree with a word Harry said because he didn't answer any questions. But maybe that'll get him in out of the White House without too much sticking to him, in the sense and so on.
Yeah.
So what was the other thing, Jude? But see, here's this thing about Trump. Let's move on a wee bit. Trump last night pulled the tariffs on Canada and Mexico. He paused them, and he says it's nothing to do with the markets and not fucking half. Dude, let's get a break here. The markets were tanking. The businesses in America were saying, bollocks this, it's unbelievable what's happening. Canada had emptied their shelves of Johnny Walker, or not Johnny Walker, what do you call it? Jack Daniels. They were the Prime Minister, I think, of Ottawa said, we're going to cut off the electricity to America. There was all sorts of boycotts of American goods, and the markets were tanking. And the American business, the one thing business can't take is, hey, wait a minute, if we do this now and we can't sell it next year, what do we do then? So,
Yes.
and it was big business for America. So
Mm.
suddenly he says he's cutting off. He's not. He's pausing these things. But Jude, here, let me talk. What I think of it. There's a boy called, what is it, Carlos Slim. He's the, for a while he was the richest man on earth. He's a Mexican, and
Oh, yes,
apparently,
remember him.
Elon Musk made some sort of claim and retweeted a thing that Carlos Slim was supposed to be engaged with some gangsters in Mexico. Following that, Carlos Slim pulled a 7 billion investment in Elon Musk's company and a further 22 billion investment across South America that he intended to put into, I think it's called Starlight or something.
Oh, yes,
This
yes,
Musk
that's Trump's little
a,
satellites.
a satellite system, and he's pulled a 22 billion investment that they intended to give Musk, and he's given it to European and Chinese companies. And I was
Oh.
going, brilliant, absolutely. So the Americans think they can rattle everybody's cages, and everybody's just going to come cut. There's a quick lesson. Wait a minute, how quick this can rebound on you.
I'm going to I would take on a bet with you now, Pat, that the trade war that everybody fears is not going to happen.
I
I
think
think
not
the
now as
key
well.
fact is that you mentioned the tanking, as they say, off the stock market. Let that happen for 3 days in a row or a week in a row. And no way will Trump maintain the stand he has said he'll maintain. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. I still would worry about Mihal going in to see him.
Yeah.
I take your point that Mihal's a very skilled. You could say that he's slippery, or you could say that he's
That was the word I
Teflon.
was trying to remember.
The
Yeah.
polite one. I don't think he'll get into a bust up with him. But the fear is, I think many people have, is that he's so slippery and so nice, he won't say to Trump, look, those plans for Gaza, you have to respect the Palestinian people's existence. And anything else is going to be genocide. Now, I don't know if he has to use the word genocide, but he's got to impress on him. And if enough people, small countries, or states, actually, in this case, if they stand up and tell him the truth, yeah, it might get through his thick skull that this sort of talk just doesn't work. Or on the other hand, of course, maybe he never meant it. Maybe he didn't mean it at all, did he?
No, I don't know. But well, I think Mihal's going to have to say to him, look, wait a minute. The only people who have the right about Gaza are the Gazans. They have the right to self-determination, not some American real estate deal mogul or whatever. And he's going to have to sort of say to him that a two-state solution is the only solution. That Israel just doesn't get everything it does. Like Israel's got America by the balls, dude. It's quite obvious. Like the Americans, like Trump yesterday apparently is now issued some sort of directive that whether any universities where they're pro or anti-Israeli protests, that funding will be cut. Jesus, talk about freedom of speech.
Well, you have to hand it for Trump for consistently turning things upside down. I
Yeah.
gather you were telling me that he has said that he's going to evict, is it 240,000 Ukrainians
Yeah.
from the US?
This week, Jude, and just on the latest, remember you used the term, and I think remember he said, I think it was Steve Bannon who said, flood the zone.
Oh,
When you flood the zone,
hmm.
you
One
just,
damn thing
this
after another.
and then nobody knows what the hell they're criticizing, and everything is, and so on. Right, this week on, I think was it Tuesday night, he announced that he was withdrawing and all intelligence sharing with the Ukrainian defense forces. No, no, no. And since then, uh, Zelensky's hometown has been attacked, I think, twice by the Russians. I presume because they have no knowledge of what's coming in. Right, that's the first thing.
Hmm.
And then yesterday, I was out and I was just driving along and I heard what do you call her, Claire Hanna say, or not Claire Hanna, Claire Byrne say on her words just coming in. President Trump has said that the U.S. will expel 240,000 Ukrainian refugees. And she said, I presume this is part of the sort of the rattling the cage again from Trump to get Zelensky to agree a peace deal that is favorable to Russia that Trump seems to admire.
Mm. Well, actually, I was just thinking as you spoke that that's a fairly shrewd move in a way. Now, it may be immoral or amoral, but it's a shrewd move because if there's 240,000 Ukrainians coming back to Ukraine, presumably, that's going to be added impetus or added encouragement for Zelensky to strike a deal. Anyway, Zelensky has said he's going to strike a deal. He's going to accept the fact that Putin, for better or worse, he's going to accept the fact that Putin is going to hold on to the land that he has grabbed. And that's the long and short of it.
Jude, here's a question for you. Trump has said so far that Zelensky's a dictator. He hasn't mentioned that Putin is. He says they can't join NATO. He says basically that the Russians can hold on to what they've got. He's going to stop sharing intelligence. He's going to expel 240,000 Ukrainians. Name a single concession he's demanded from Russia. Can you name one?
No, not a thing. No, no, nothing, nothing. But I'll tell you, if they, it's one thing to say, oh, he shouldn't be telling the Ukraine whether or not they can join any organization, whether it's the EU or NATO. But if Ukraine joined NATO, I would be worried because it seems to me quite clear that Trump is going to sort of detach himself from NATO and say, you Europeans fund NATO yourselves, do the fighting yourselves. The fact is that if the Ukraine became part of NATO and Putin did another encroachment or started another war, all of Europe would have to get in there and fight back. That's because that's the rules of NATO. Attack one, you attack them all. That's kind of scary. That's kind of scary.
Just to follow on from what you said, there was a big European security meeting yesterday. Was it Munich? I can't remember. Or was it Brussels? Doesn't matter. Anyway, von der Leyen, the president of the EU, later issued or not issued. She was at the press conference. They have agreed for an 800 billion. Keep that in mind. 800 billion spend on rearming Europe for security reasons, etc., etc., etc. I think 27 agreed. The only one disagreed was Viktor Orban from Hungary. I think they're going to have to chuck out of the EU because he seems to. He doesn't seem to believe. No, by the way, I'm not saying you chuck him out because of that, but he seems to be thinking that Europe is some sort of old style communist thing that people have no rights except him. So anyway, that's a side issue. But anyway, they're going to increase their budget for rearmament to 800 billion, and they're calling it the coalition of the willing, Jude.
Yeah. Well, in some ways, I see that as hard common sense in that if the US is not going to be there with all its military might, which dwarfs everything else in the world, if they're not going to be there, you tend to say, well, yeah, Europe had better, man up and get its armies and air forces and so on in shape. So that would be good, and that might deter Putin from going on. On the other hand, there's a part of me that says, I remember doing history, and the teacher saying, there's no case in history that he could think of that where countries got armed for war, spent huge money on it, and then didn't fight. Now he was wrong in that the Cold War evaporated eventually, and all the expenditure and so on. There wasn't a war between the USSR and the West, but by and large, when I see giant sums being put into weaponry, I find that worrying. Number one, the people who are benefiting from it immediately are the arms manufacturers. And that's sort of obscene. And they also, if you're putting it into arms, you're not putting it into other things. And there are plenty of other things that really need attention. If you take even the health service and housing, it's not as if things at home were just Jim dandy. I worry about this notion of arming. It gets a kind of an inevitability into people's heads. There's bad stuff coming. Oh, they've declared war. Oh, well, sure, we saw it coming. I don't know if there's anything we can do about it, but I think there should be some people who should point out that the states can create a state, the people who run states can create a frame of mind that accepts things that they wouldn't accept if they didn't get sort of brainwashed into it. Is that an
Absolutely.
exaggeration, Pat, or do you think is
No,
that?
it's not. No, I think sometimes you sort of go down a path, and then there's an inevitability about it. You
Hmm.
know, when you spend 800 million in arms, it's almost sort of saying we'll have to use them.
And again, you see, the trouble is we forget that there are people who get benefit enormously from this. Like, for example, Trump's mate, Elon Musk. I don't know if you have seen it, but there's an app you can get that'll show you the night sky actually,
Yeah,
and it'll have labeled all over the place, labeled Saturn and so on, but it'll
yeah,
also have labeled these little dots that are all the little satellites. And
yeah.
the number, I didn't know these existed before about a year ago. So many of them are called Starlight or Starbright, or which I forget which,
Uh,
and those all belong to Musk. And he's,
yeah.
so he now not only has economic power in terms of people signing up to deals for phones, but he also has got military strength in that he can switch this off and Ukraine's screwed. They haven't a chance.
Dude, I didn't hear this myself, but a person I know was telling me that apparently there was something on there on BBC there quite recently where a reporter said that he personally had talked to a couple of Republicans who had phone calls from Musk who told them, apparently someone along the lines, apparently they are dodgy about what's Trump's line on Ukraine and wanted to go public and saying we're disassociating ourselves.
Mhm.
They got phone calls saying that Musk would use his money to destroy them, and I mean destroy. So in other words, it launch a campaign, buy people, and it's easy to do, by the way, in America. You put out disinformation, and suddenly somebody's career's over. And I know maybe even AA, fake sexual encounters or something, who knows? But anyway, that's the story. So, Jude, we're sitting watching and away. Remember all the claims about old Russia, about Stalinism, about the no individual rights. I'm sitting watching America now. Trump warning students that they can't protest against Israel. He's accusing media of being what do you call it, fake. He's warned the courts. He says he's not. He has rights as a president exceeds the rights of the courts. So, in other words, untrammeled sort of arrogance and power.
Hmm. Well, I'm not sure it's totally untrammeled because you'll have people still in the States and certainly in New York Times, I get articles in the email from them. And
Uh,
there's smart guys who can see the score. And in fact, Trump's making no effort to hide it, nor is
yeah,
Elon Musk. In the past, the military industrial complex was in the background and you didn't really, advert to it because it wasn't
yeah.
in the headlines. Now it's in the headlines every day. And I think people are going, the penny's got to drop with a lot of people that this is no good. The other thing is the people who elected Trump were poor people. That essentially is it. There were people who hoped for something better.
Yeah.
They're not going to get something better. They're
No,
not going
no,
to get something
no.
better, except they're
Judah
a
already.
billionaire.
I remember he said that the price of eggs, that's what he used. Well, apparently now a dozen eggs costs $12. So each egg is now worth $1. It's gone way, way up. And
I'd like to
the other
see
thing as well,
somebody. I'd like to see somebody have
well,
the nerve to do what happened in Britain during the election, fire a few eggs into Trump's face.
when in America you'd probably get shot. But the other thing is,
Exactly. I was just thinking that you'd be dead
yeah,
before the egg got to
but
his face.
exactly. But the other thing as well, like what do you call her? Kamala Harris was a poor choice of candidate to run against Trump. Like Trump thinks he won so handsomely because everybody loved him. I think for number one in America, Kamala Harris is black. That wasn't a mainstream thing in America because racism is running rife at the moment, rampant. She is a woman, which no woman has ever been elected president of America. She was not the original choice of the Democrat Party. She never stood for in the primaries. So, Jude, this whole thing, like, I would wonder, no buyer's remorse. I would love to know a lot of people in America who voted for Trump. Are they sitting there going, "Oh shit"?
Well, I suspect not because it has penetrated to Ireland. I tell you that the other day, and I saw the guy earlier today, in fact, and he's a really nice guy. A guy and his wife who would say that Trump is a very good guy. and far
Yeah.
preferable to Kamala Harris. So there you go. There are people, all sorts of people who support Trump, but there are also all sorts of people who don't support him. Okay,
Yeah.
let's move on out of Trump land for a few minutes that are left. Does the name Kathleen Rose McMullen mean anything to you, Pat?
No, no.
Kathleen, Kathleen Rose McMullen was 11 years old,
Oh
and
God, I
she
know
was
who you're
getting
talking
off
about.
the school bus,
Boss, oh Jesus, yeah.
a school bus in Castle
Oh
Dawson,
God.
which
Uh,
incidentally is where Seamus Healy's from originally. And she was hit by a car or hit by a vehicle and killed. Now,
uh,
it's about a week earlier, another youngster, I think he was 9, drowned somewhere, fell into a river or was in a river and drowned. But in terms of road accidents, as they call them, they're not accidents, they're crashes. Do you
mm.
remember about 15 years ago, 10 years ago, um, Gay Byrne was made the czar of
Of the Road
road
Safety
safety?
Authority in the south. Yeah,
And nothing, I don't think it made a single bit of difference, or certainly if it made a difference, it's not much because we hear of deaths every day, and many of them occurring in Donegal. And I made the point
yeah,
to a group of people that the reason I have a high respect for the roads in Donegal is that so many people die on them. They were seeing it, they
yeah.
were taking it, how dare you, say anything about Donegal, that everything isn't rosy there. Uh, I just think that. There's something insane about our values. We get very,
Yeah.
very worked. No, but remember the Troubles, Pat, and we got
Yeah.
worked up every week because there was people being killed, people dying. People are just that Kathleen Rose McMullen. Her family will never recover from that event. And it'll
No.
echo down the generations. Grandchildren will still remember the story about their, this grand aunt or
Do you
whatever.
know someone should that stories like that, I are stood up and I'm not even kidding you. I can't deal with them. I really genuinely can't.
But shouldn't
See
you?
when someone to a wee girl that age, you just start thinking, there she is, yeah, probably heading for secondary school, a whole life
Yeah,
ahead of
she
her.
was in first
Like
year.
what
She was in first year.
I have three kids, Jude, and if anything happened to them, I would die. I really
Aye,
would.
that's right. But you see, I don't think my point is that while it goes straight to your heart, and because it goes straight to your heart, why the hell don't people do something about it? One obvious thing, obvious as the nose in your face, is don't build vehicles that can do high speeds. That's one.
Yeah.
Secondly, I mean, the very idea of a child getting off what I presume was a school bus and being hit by
I
a
presume a school bus.
seems insane. Where the school near us, there's a lollipop woman, and you drive very carefully, and I mean, there's lots of kids milling around, but you're super careful, and there's people
Uh,
watching you to see that you are. I just think we don't even begin to take steps to make sure that roads. If it was anything else, if it was a hidden gunman, if it was a
yeah,
sniper, who every week was taking out a couple of people, there'd be outrage after about 2 weeks. This has
absolutely.
been going on forever.
Jude, someone you mentioned that we Kathleen Rose McMullen. That breaks me heart. Really genuine. I can't deal with stuff like that. I really can't. I don't even read stuff anymore. Just can't. In fact, there's just something that he's just triggered. There's a friend of mine. His 23-year-old daughter died earlier this week. Just they don't know what happened. I presume maybe adult heart thing. But
Hmm.
anyway, she just died. And I was thinking, God Almighty, uh, you know how does he and his wife? I think she was their youngest child. And you just sort of, there was a young reporter died in the Derry Journal years ago called Donald McDermott. His father was a doctor in Derry. He was called Donald. I remember
Is he a
standing at the
brother of
grave that
Higgins?
day. Aye, brother of Emmett, yeah. And I was sitting, and Donald, the father came up to me, and I remember him look on his face. He's put the wrong Donalds in that coffin, like you should not bury your children.
That's true. But again, those cases are harrowing. I still would make a distinction in the case of, say, somebody like Kathleen Rose McMullen. In
Yeah,
the
I
case you have
agree with you.
cited,
I mean,
the
it's
person died from
uh,
natural causes, and horrible though that is, there's nothing literally you can do about it. But there are things we can do about the way people are
Yeah,
being
like the
slaughtered on
pain
the
of the
bloody
parents
road.
is the same. But I take your point. Like,
Oh,
Jude, a wee
Jesus.
child, on a public road.
Uh,
But Jude, you mentioned earlier on, I meant to. See, Donegal, you're 100% right. I'm a Donegal man, I'm a very proud one. But Jude, nearly every Monday morning, I remember when I was getting up for work, there'd be a report on RT over the weekend. I'd say every second, maybe every third week, Donegal, a 74-year-old man was killed on a road in Donegal yesterday. Two people died on a car crash. And the worst morning ever, woke up was one morning. My wife came in and says, Jesus, Pat, there was a terrible accident last night. I think it was 7 young people from Donegal killed in the one accident. Like, dude, that's about 10 years ago.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
remember
yeah.
thinking, good God, I sit there, got that wrong. It was, in fact, it was an any show. So,
But
Jude,
think, you see, the things
go ahead.
can, Pat, the thing is that things can change with regard to death on the road. I mean, I
Mm.
think by and large, maybe you know some people, but I don't know anybody who thinks it's a very clever, funny thing to have a few pints in you and then drive your car. I,
Not
I,
anymore, Jude.
I
It's
think that
become
has been
very
socially
unacceptable.
outlawed, so to speak. It's the will of the
Yeah.
people, not the enforcement officers. Surely to God, they should be able to do the same thing with regard to speed and a few other things, so that the idea of somebody dying by being hit by a car would be so rare that
Mm.
you would say if it happened once a year it was terrible. Um,
Yeah.
words fail me, and you
But
hear
Jude,
it
the thing about
discussed,
it,
never hear it discussed.
getting back to Donegal, we have got a lot of mountain roads, narrow roads. I was out yesterday, and the number of people past me doing 70 and 80 miles an hour, or well, not kilometers an hour. Dude, some of the roads, you'd be lucky if you 40 would be enough, 40 miles an hour. Yet there, yeah, yeah, it's ridiculous.
There should be a system. Actually think the very roads you're talking about are very often absolutely beautiful, because there is that
Yeah.
sort of element of
Yeah.
surprise when you're around a corner and you see a new
Yeah,
vista.
and then you see a
Uh,
leak or something. Yeah,
yeah. So, but there must be a way. There really must be a way. On certain stretches of road, at least, they should have these automatic cameras which assess what
yeah,
you're doing when you enter it, what
yeah,
you're doing how long it takes you to traverse that section. And
yeah.
as a result, you'd know if you got
An
above the
average
speed limit
speed
or
eye.
not.
Yeah,
And I tell
yeah,
you another thing, very simple thing, should be in every goddamn road is, these flashing little things that tells you whether you're doing
yeah,
what speed you're doing.
yeah,
I think that's a
yeah,
terrifically effective thing. Like everybody else, you tend to go for the limit occasionally. And then when
yeah,
I see that, I say, oh, geez, people will see that I'm a bloody road hog. And you drop it.
yeah,
I mean, it's so
yeah.
obvious things like that. I'm no expert, you're no expert, but there are people who are being paid for this kind of thing. Why the hell don't they do something? And
Right,
clear
right
the
before we
line.
go, did you see at that meeting on Thursday where the PSNI admitted that they have some officers, some one guy has been off and getting paid for 7 years?
44 suspended PSNI officers facing a range of allegations, including serious sexual offences. Now, I'd have one thing to ask, and that is, what's the rules for hiring these people in the first place? There must be something in their background which suggests that they might be that type. And the other thing is, of course, the fact that they're not employing Catholics at the rate that they should be doing, or people with a Catholic background. So how they get away with it, I don't know. Details had that one officer off work for 7 years.
Suspended. He's getting paid.
And currently, 14 officers have been suspended for up to a year. 21 have been off work for 1 to 3 years. And of that number, 11 are involved in ongoing criminal proceedings. The PSNI had a wonderful chance to be a new force or a new service, and they have blown it conclusively on every front. I say
Yeah.
we should offer our services, Pat, to tell these people how to run things. Don't you think we could get rich in that?
No, but Jude, when I
What?
heard
Why
the
did you
fact that
say
one guy had
yes?
been
You just
yeah,
said
oh yes,
ah.
but no, but Jude, somebody suspended for 7 years.
Oh,
Like,
gee.
how does that work?
You nearly think that they were trying to present a negative image, as if they were working hard. No, we want no, no.
The suspended officers apparently are costing them 3.5 million a year on wages.
No,
They're cash strapped.
they're
Like,
not. They're
and
not
but you
costing
know,
them. They're costing.
when I read about the fact that somebody suspended for 7 years, I go, he be suspended for 7 years?
You said that it's costing them. It's not costing them. Costing me, and
I,
people like me.
I, and the occupied
It's
territories, a taxpayer.
ridiculous. Okay, Pat. I'm going to
Okay,
spend
Jude.
the the rest of this week, this weekend in the
With a
Oxford
blanket over your head.
Territory, and I'll do my
Yeah.
best to live as a free Irishman. Okay,
Okay, Jude.
all the best, Pat. Thanks.